Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hi, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. I am so excited. This episode going to be super spooky. Super spooky, talking to one of my Bettys. You've heard her before, I'm sure. And I did an intro on the first episode with everybody. This is Jen Durant, who is married to Tom Durant, who is my demonologist. I say that like he's mine only. He is my friend, and we may have already had that episode on. I don't know. I tape a whole bunch out of order. But tonight, Jen and I are talking about, Jen is one of these people that is so on the light side. Like I almost call myself a medium to dark light worker. Because like you work so much on the light side and you're all about the light, and I'm still stepping a little into the scary side, but you actually started at Wolfe Manor, which is kind of the scary side. So you may know, let me see if I can do the intro correctly. I met you because you married Tom, who I knew, and you moved down here, and Tom was like, she doesn't know anybody. And then immediately you became like not only one of my best friends, but during an ayahuasca trip, I was told that you and I have more lives together than anyone else I know. Isn't that weird?
I love that. Yeah, that is so cool.
It could be. We never, but anyways, okay. So you started, so Jen does Reiki and has done, all kinds of meditation, communications, all this and that. But you started your paranormal at Wolfe Manor. Can you tell us a little bit? We're jumping right in because I love this. Tell us a little bit about Wolfe Manor. It was in Clovis, correct?
Yeah, Wolfe Manor. I was already on a paranormal research team at that point, and I went on a tour of this big creepy house called Wolfe Manor. It was originally a residence, and then they made it into a hospital, and then a convalescent hospital, and then a Halloween attraction. So a few people from my team and I went to the Wolfe Manor just to take a tour of it because the owner, Todd Wolfe, was so wonderful to just give tours out to people.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that was his last name. So it became Wolfe Manor after everything when he bought it. Okay.
Right, yeah. It was a Halloween attraction called Scream If You Can. It was the biggest Halloween attraction in California for a few years. Unfortunately, the city shut it down because it got to be too big in that small little town of Clovis, California.
Really?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it was terrible. So he called it Wolfe Manor because for a few years, Todd Wolfe wanted to make the house into a hotel, and he was going to call it Wolfe Manor.
Oh, and just my interview skills are terrible, but I have to go back one. What made it the best Halloween attraction? Was it just how it was set up, the people, the energy they put into it, the size of it, what the story?
Well, it was attracting more people than any other Halloween attraction in California. At least that's what I heard.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. Interesting point to talk about later about haunted places and people drawn to them. Okay, yeah. So wherever I cut you off there.
I'm not sure where you cut me off there.
So you were saying he gives you guys tours?
Oh, right. Okay, so yeah, so we, I had been researching paranormal haunted locations with my team and, having a good time with that. And it was, all hunky dory. Went into the Wolfe Manor for the tour. As soon as I walked into that house, I felt like, how do I describe it? It almost felt like I had the flu. I wanted to curl up in a little ball and hide in the corner or leave the house. I felt terrible. But I knew at that moment that if I did leave, I could never be a paranormal investigator and I'd have to quit. So I thought, no, I've got to stick this out. And I was fascinated with it and being in there, and I wanted to know why I felt like that.
And that is sort of a thing in paranormal investigation. You listen to your gut. And I was told that ghosts are a lower vibration. They're not supposed to be there, so they can make your stomach upset.
They can. And because that particular house was a hospital, I think I could have been picking up on sick people, the residual energy of that, or the old people that live there. I mean, it was a convalescent hospital. I'm sure that there were a lot of sick people there, and
sure,
but I think to me, looking back in hindsight, there was so much going on there.
You mean as paranormal?
Paranormal. Yeah. I mean, to me, it felt like layers and layers and layers. I'm highly sensitive, and what I would pick up was layers and layers and layers of, residual energy and active energy that was going on. And I'm, again, being highly sensitive, I just really felt it.
Yeah, and maybe it was like a perfect storm of ick.
It really was. I'd have people coming in. I started, do you want me to jump ahead?
Sure, go wherever you want.
Well, after that tour, I told the owner, Todd Wolfe, that I loved his house so much. I hated it and loved it at the same time. That if he needed any help giving tours, to please call me. Well, about 24 hours went by and he called me and asked me if I could give a tour because he was so busy, and I didn't know anything about it, but I jumped in and started giving tours. But I noticed people were coming in that were skeptical. They had never had a paranormal experience, didn't even believe in the paranormal, but were having and feeling the same kind of things I was feeling. I'd have people that would get dizzy. I had people throwing up.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. People getting headaches. I mean, you name it, it happened.
See, now that I always find interesting, and also your reaction to the house, because I always say, I know it's TV and not a lot is real, but every episode of Haunted Houses starts with, I had to have the house, or I love the house, like something even draws you in.
Yes.
Yes.
I
understand I have to control my fascination of dark places. And I really do have to control it because I know sometimes I'm looking for trouble. And when we went to Linda Vista Hospital, which we were lucky enough to be the last people to get and investigate Linda Vista Hospital, there was a hallway and I distinctly heard in my head, so what is it you want to see? And then Terry and you came along behind me and you go, I don't like this hallway. We should go to another one. But I thought that was probably something that was really like, yeah, you're curious. Yeah. What do you want to see? What do you really want to see?
Well, it's fascinating, and I don't think you're of the darkness, Karen.
No, but I like to peek over the wall.
Because it's interesting. I mean, we want to know, what about it? It's interesting, I unfortunately am married to a demonologist, and so I've had my own personal encounters with dark stuff, and so I don't want to look over the wall anymore.
There was an encounter about a black crow, wasn't there?
Yeah, that was one of the many things that I encountered when I started dating my husband. My husband, being what we call a demonologist, he is very much of the light himself, but he would be called in if anyone had any kind of dark energy happening.
Really dark energy.
Yeah, really, really bad stuff happening, really bad stuff. He would go and help out. So because he was dabbling in that and interacting with those types of energies, he told me that I might, come across or have some situations myself that were a little uncomfortable. So I didn't believe him at all. I was like, this is stupid, and I don't believe in this stuff. I did not. And one thing after another started happening to me that was just not okay.
Yeah.
So at that point,
was there a crow that fell on your car?
Yeah, I was coming. I lived up in the Fresno area at the time, and I was driving down to Southern California to see my boyfriend. He was my boyfriend then, Tom, and everything leading up to that was just wrong. I was sick, and all of these weird things were happening to me. But yeah, I was just driving along the 5, and a crow just came flying down and was dead. It landed on my car. I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah. And you know what else? And I'm just going to take a moment because Tom will be on the show or has been on the show. Like I said, I just tape a lot of these and sometimes they come out of order. People, I feel so lucky. Tom was the first person I met in the paranormal. I emailed a whole bunch of people and said, who wants a paranormal comedian on their show? And he has stayed a friend forever, even when we don't talk for 6 months or this or that. And he is my go-to guy because him and Dave, but it's something that sometimes I hear that word demonologist thrown around on the internet and I get very uncomfortable because it's not, that's not a school. That's not a place you go and get a degree. And it's a very dangerous title. And I think sometimes people get drawn into it because it sounds exciting. Or the other night on a radio show, there was this guy talking about exorcism, and I teach 16-year-old kids how to call Jesus in and exorcise and all this stuff. And I thought, this is a recipe for disaster. Tom is familiar with dead languages. He's familiar with all these different things. And not only that, somebody told me that he has extra protection, like spiritual.
Yeah, Tom coming into this lifetime, I think this was part of his higher calling.
Yeah.
Tom has never liked the title demonologist.
Yeah, he goes back and forth. Sometimes you can say it. Yeah,
we just call him that. He doesn't like to call himself that, but it kind of identifies, what he does or whatever. So,
and it connects to ego.
Totally.
Ego is the death in this business.
Right. Yeah, I always tell people, like, if you're looking for help, try to find somebody that doesn't charge money. My husband doesn't charge money for any of the things he does. He really does research and spends his time doing this for the right reasons.
And I've shared stories with other people, including my story about the attachment, where it's unbelievable in every story. You have to make your own mistakes, okay? But everybody has a story where Tom went, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Right.
And that's it. And that's all he says. And he doesn't say why. And everybody has to learn their own thing. But it's famous. You always hear, I wouldn't do that. So I always, I have great respect for his caution. It's not everybody become an exorcist. It's a lot of caution.
Well, he takes this very seriously. There are a lot of people out there that are dabbling into these dark entities that are
probably tricking them into thinking they have more power than they do.
Totally. Well, these guys are getting their ass handed to them. These guys are the ones that are calling Tom and saying, "Hey, I need your help," because they're not following the rules. They're not doing things that they should be doing. Mm-hmm. Tom really does.
Yeah, that's why I stepped carefully. Okay, so so you were drawn to. So now you're bringing tours around Wolfe Manor, and people are getting sick and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that was a interesting time. We so while doing the tours, I met some really super cool people. One of them, one of the guys, his name is Scott Grinwald. You guys, some of you, might know who he is. He's awesome.
If you don't know him, check out the stew on YouTube. He's hysterical.
He is. He's great. He showed up one night for a tour. We became friends, and we all started hanging out. There was another friend of mine, Terry Campbell, who I love dearly. We all decided to start this live internet show at the Wolfe Manor, because we had so many things happening all the time that, paranormal stuff, that we wanted to share it with everybody. So we thought, how cool would this be? So I think we did it on Sunday night, every Sunday night, every week. We started out, we had like 13 viewers, and we ended up like getting like hundreds of viewers eventually, and ended up on, all the shows, the, Ghost Hunters, and, all those TV shows that I don't know all the names of. But, unfortunately, yeah, I ended up leaving after some time, but before that, it was amazing. It was such an amazing place. I could write a book on my experiences of that house.
And did it become darker? Like, I know Linda Vista Hospital probably did not start out as dark as it became.
Everybody has a different opinion on that place and what was really there. Nobody really knows 100% sure. So when I was there, I never experienced any kind of symptoms or anything that seemed dark to me. My husband, Tom, before I even met him, he went into that house and he swears that there was something dark there. So I don't know.
I think Scott, I remember someone telling me an experience with Scott where Scott thought the same thing. And for anyone that knows Scott, I've got to have him on this. I've got to have him on this podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He is funny all the time. He is light, all this stuff. And all of a sudden, somebody that was ghost hunting with him, he whispered very seriously, "Here it comes." Like there was something in there, like, here it comes. And the person still to this day didn't really know what he was talking about. Things got very dark. And when you, what made you leave Wolfe Manor? Or tell us some of your experiences, even better.
So, oh my gosh, where do I even start with that?
EVPs, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I had keys to the house, and so my buddy Terry and we would go in. I remember my birthday one year, I'm like, hey, I wanted to go there on my birthday, just him and I. But it was so much fun. It was like Disneyland to go in there by ourselves with nobody else and do EVP sessions, and just investigate. So, yeah, I had all kinds of fun EVPs. There was one night Terry and I showed up. It was so funny. Him and I just wanted to go in and hang out. And I'll tell you, every single day or night was different. I could go in on a Saturday night, open up the house, give a tour, and nothing went on. I could go back on Sunday afternoon, and it would be so intensely heavy that I couldn't even walk in the house. Wow. So one of the times that Terry and I showed up, one of the many times we showed up, we parked our cars. As soon as we got out of the... I don't know what that
guy
was.
With a small penis driving by. Yeah.
We parked our cars. As soon as I got out of my car, I felt like eyes were on me. We both felt uneasy. I'm like, is there a prowler in the house? We're like trying to make sense of it. We walked up onto the front porch and something was not let us in the house. So we were
You physically could not walk in the house.
No, we could physically walk in the house. Energetically, we couldn't walk in the house. You could feel somebody, and what I was sensing was that there was some sort of an entity and he was stomping around the front porch and he just didn't want us to go in.
Wow.
So we were scared and we thought power in numbers. So we started calling all of our friends saying, hey, can you come down to the Wolfe Manor and go in with us? Because we thought if we had a big group, we'd be safe. So that was an interesting time. Wow. I had my hair pulled. I had things breathing into my ears. I was pushed.
How about things moving? That's one I have not seen really.
There wasn't a lot of stuff in the house. It takes a lot of energy for an entity, a spirit or whatever, to move something like that. So I never experienced anything moving. We did experience a lot of different smells. Terry and I had opened up the house together, walked upstairs we always would open up the house and, do a just walk through to make sure there were no transients or make sure everything was ready for the tour. And we smelt strong men's cologne following us around from room to room. There was nobody else in the house. This is like in the middle of the daytime.
Smells, paranormal smells are really a different, it's a weird scare. Because you don't know that it's there. You're kind of like, who's smoking? Who's smoking a cigarette? Yeah, it's
the weirdest thing. You want to make sense. Is someone smoking outside?
And it's so clear.
Totally.
Everybody wants to see a full body apparition. That almost never happens.
Right.
But that smell is almost as real. It's so real that you can't.
There wasn't a window open in the house. We didn't have any way of opening the windows because we actually had them all blacked out for the show. Because sometimes during the summertime, it would still be light out and we wanted to make it look dark inside. So there wasn't even a window open. Yeah, you can't. How do you deny that? There was so many things. Not only me, but we had, different guests on our show and they would experience things. There were times we were filming live and the guests at home would be hearing singing, like a lady singing that we couldn't even hear.
Wow.
So they'd be in the chat room like, oh my God. And I couldn't see the chat room, but they're like, Jen, do you hear that? And again, I'm doing my thing, investigating. And I'd go home and watch the show from home at night because I thought it was fun. And I'm like, oh my God, there was a lady singing and I couldn't even, couldn't hear it. So things like that were happening, which was super cool.
Do you think, I always think this, I think when I was younger in wisdom, is that a phrase? What a dumb phrase. When I was younger in wisdom. And I didn't know as much. I would go into these places and I would almost have protection in that I didn't know what's going on. But now the more I know, the more I think the things that are in the house I know. They kind of know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's not
sure,
as
of course
safe.
they do. Yeah.
But I find that I just remember I never made it there. And at the end, just before it went down, really, and I don't think it was Tom, but people were like, I wouldn't go there if I were you.
Yeah. That's, I really don't know. I wasn't there anymore. It's all just hearsay. People were saying there was a lot of dark stuff going on. I think there were a lot of people involved that were wanting dark things to be involved.
Right.
That's kind of what I was hearing. So I don't know for sure.
And then even with Linda Vista, it seemed like there was people were bringing Santeria and animal sacrifices,
right?
And those giant buildings that were empty. There was a lot of weird stuff. So on top of the haunting, now we've got some negativity, which then draws more and more and more. And more.
Yeah, absolutely. There were nights I would give tours and people would bring Ouija board, and I'm like, no, you're not bringing that Ouija board in, So I don't know what happened after I left, if that kind of stuff was going on or not. I don't know. I have no idea what was happening. So.
I know my friend Sarah went there once, and she was like, Karen, I probably shouldn't go back, but if I ever get invited, I cannot say no. She said it was the most, I've never been that fascinated.
Yeah.
She was like, I couldn't say no.
It was very fascinating. Although I could never be in there by myself. My gosh. There were nights I'd go in to, wait for my tour. It'd be winter, so it was dark at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and they'd be showing up at 7, and I'm sitting out on the porch, and, I'd have like a group of little girls show up, little teenagers, and and they'd see my face, and then they would get scared, and it was like, oh my God, we'd all be scared together, But I did have one thing happen that was really weird, and I believe in being safe doing these types of things. If you're a paranormal investigator, be safe.
Yeah, be smart.
Yeah.
Don't antagonize, first of all.
Exactly. And, so every Sunday we did this live internet show. And so there was a Sunday afternoon that I got together with my girlfriend, and we were having some wine and, hanging out like we would do every once in a while. And
Which is always, drinking compromises your auric energy.
Absolutely.
So when you're ghost hunting, this is a terrible idea.
Yeah, because those spirits, they don't see us like we see each other. They sense us, and they can sense our energy like we can sense their energy. So when you're drinking or on drugs or what have you, your energy field does get kind of fragmented or funky or whatever. So they're sensing something different. But there was one night I showed up a little tipsy, and I was not drunk, just a little tipsy, and didn't think much of it because I did this. It was like going to, whatever. I did this every week. So in the middle of giving a tour on camera, it was a live, our live internet show. All of a sudden, out of the blue, I started getting really angry, and I didn't know why.
Oh, and I want to explain this before we start, because this is fascinating. And people always ask me, what is the scariest thing I ever saw? And I always say it was a walk-on, which is what you're about to describe, right?
Yeah. This was really weird because, everything was hunky-dory, everything was great. And I remember leaving one room and going out into the hallway. All the cameras were going, and we have our guests there, and Scott and Terry were there. And I just got mad, and I don't know where it came from, really, really mad. And we were all, talking, and I just started yelling. And Terry's looking at me like, why are you being so angry? And I'm like, I started throwing the F-bomb. And people at home watching the live internet show said my face changed and my voice changed.
Wow.
And I didn't know what was going on, but I was angry. And for about 3 days, I could not shake the funk that was inside of my body. I didn't know what was going on. So I didn't even know how to handle it. I went on the internet, and I'm like, what do I do? And so I read about saging, which I don't recommend, but that's all I knew at the time, was sage myself and put some salt out and do all these things I found on the internet. And I think within some time it kind of went away. But that was horrible. That was a horrible thing.
Yeah, and for those, I've seen a walk-on. This is where we say a human spirit, we think it's a human spirit, actually tries to take over a body. Which is a weird, I don't know that they have the energy to sustain it, but it's like I've been on ghost hunts where the biggest, scariest skeptic will all of a sudden say, I think I'm going to cry, because something is either so close to them or trying to intrude. And I've always thought, I saw it once on the Star of India, and I will never forget what that looked like. And before it happened, the guy jumped up and said, something pulled on my collar, which that is an entrance point, which is the back of the neck.
Right.
And I never forgot that. And even now, sometimes I'll feel a scratch on the back of my neck, and I'll just start with my protection and whatever. But so some people, when they have a walk-on, they black out. They don't know they're there, but you knew it was there. It just sort of stuck with you.
Yeah, it just stuck with me. This happened to me 2 other times after that.
Really?
Yeah, it did.
So you kind of became permeable after that.
Yeah, but I've learned my lesson since then.
Yeah,
3 times, that's enough. Because I don't think I understood it the first time.
Right.
And all 3 times that it happened to me, the second time it happened was when I got my Reiki level 1 attunement. And so my energy was really big and bright. And I think whatever entity was at this specific place really was like, wow, who's that? oh my gosh, I like you. I want to be next to you.
And by the way, Jen is beautiful, so she hears that all the time.
Right. Thanks, Durant. But yeah, the other time it happened, I was at another really haunted place, and I was really tired. I wasn't feeling good.
And you were with Tom at one of these, right?
I was. Yeah, I was.
And he had trouble. So you never really, so you just know that these are emotions that are not yours.
Absolutely.
You don't really know anybody else is in there. You just know that,
Well, yeah, it just comes on. It just came on so quickly. And that's one of the things you need to look out for is how am I feeling emotionally? It's not always physical.
Right.
Think about how you're feeling mentally and emotionally. What's going on there?
Right. And it's almost always somebody that gets it's really with anger. It's really just, it just gets crazy. That's fascinating. But it has not happened in a long time, watching your energy. And you like investigation, but you don't, you're very careful.
Yeah, I am careful. I don't really go out and dabble into it anymore. I've experienced a lot.
Yeah,
so
enough.
I'm not as interested. I believe it. Like I think before, when I first started 10 years ago, I was, I knew I was really sensitive and I could sense spirit, and I wanted to go out and, check it out. But now the only time I really get involved with it is if someone needs help.
Right.
Someone calls and they're like, yeah, something's going on in my home. Okay, well, I'll come over and check it out for you and help you out.
Yeah, it's even like I think Virginia City is it's quite an interesting place. But I love it there. I actually I still have not learned my lesson. So, but at least it'll make for interesting podcast. But there's a hotel that someone recommended there. It's called the Gold Mill.
Gold Mill, yeah.
And it's really dark.
Yeah.
And I almost felt like the woman that worked there was two different people. At one point, she was just this angry person, and then she was like, that you can't have a dog in here. And 10 minutes later, she was like, we have dogs here all the time. And I was like, okay. And that's a tough stay. You know what I mean? You don't want to stay. You want to stay in a hotel, and you don't want these things in your home. So you got to draw the line. And a bartender fell down. And we were all sitting in this dark kind of bar area, and she came down the stairs and she tripped, and it actually made the most beautiful photo because I was taking photos, and it was in the, using the night vision. So it was the old cameras where they take a minute to take the picture. So I kind of got her like in motion, but it was like someone kicked the foot out from under her.
Jeez.
And then she gets up, she goes, that happens all the time.
No big deal.
And then we also found this was the loveliest woman ever. And there was a fight that started in the bar because of her. She was the bartender, and somebody was getting ready to sue. So there seems like when you don't get fresh air and get out, you are really this stuff really can happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That whole town is haunted. It's like you can't get away from it.
Right. And it's crystal mines underneath, which is a whole bunch of energy vibrating on its own.
Right.
I often wonder, after I saw that walk on, I wondered, you hear about people that get drunk or this or that, and they don't remember, and then they've done horrible things. And I wonder how much of that is truly that energy. Like somebody went in and something else walked on.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's very true.
See, you have to drink with spirits you trust.
Exactly. Just don't drink when you go into those places.
I know, careful. It's just crazy.
I was asking for it, really. But, to me, all this stuff they're learning experiences. You know? They really are.
Yeah. So. And other episodes, too, it's like even, going through what's going on in Kira's house, what you also find is these answers are simple. Or they are, whatever your spirituality is every day. Burn incense every day. Nothing is expensive. It's all very simple. Do this every day. Start this routine. And even with that, a lot of people just can't be bothered.
Right. I think all of these, if you have something in your house, for instance, I think they're there to teach us something. I think, whether it's our higher selves or before we came into this lifetime, we made a contract with them to come in and, hey, there's a lesson we need to learn. I don't think it's just about these human spirits that we're walking around and talking to. I think all the lessons in our lifetime can be with not non-human, but, human spirit that, we can't see, or it could be our, loved ones that have passed on. It could be, who knows, it could be anybody. But I think we need to look at everything as a learning experience.
Yeah. And, it's very funny because Ed Warren, probably the original demonologist, writes a fabulous book. Their books, if you ever want to be spooked, that is the audiobook that you get, anything by him and his wife. And they always said when people become possessed, somewhere there was a contract made.
Sure, I believe that.
Somewhere that person agreed.
Yep.
Whether it was before they came or even that horrible story about a haunting in Connecticut.
Yep.
The spirits drove the kid so crazy. And then the parents kept saying, you're not hearing that, you're not hearing that, you're not hearing that. That finally he said, if I say okay, will you stop talking to me?
Wow.
And then he became possessed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't tell your kids. Stay neutral with your kids if they're hearing or seeing something. I can't say that enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, awesome, Jen. Well, we're sorry Wolfe Manor is no longer there.
I am too. I was so sad when it went away.
Are those YouTube files still up?
Of the live internet show?
Yeah.
Or some of them are. I don't know where those things are. They're floating around somewhere.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for stopping by. This was awesome. And I hope that we scared you to death out there in listener land.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day. People always ask me where I get my crystals and beautiful gemstone jewelry, and I tell them I go right to GaiaSpirits.com. Gaia Spirits Gift Shop has everything from crystals to singing bowls, and they also offer readings, Reiki, gift certificates, and home blessing services that fit everyone's budget. My friend Robin Celine has years of experience with crystals, so if you're not sure what you're looking for, she is always right there to help. They even have crystal packages to help with house cleansings and getting rid of some of those pesky ghosts. I get so many compliments on my black tourmaline necklace Robin suggested for grounding, and so far I haven't floated away yet. As a special gift for my listeners, use coupon code Paranormal Karen and receive 10% off your first purchase. Again, use coupon code Paranormal Karen, all one word. GaiaSpirits.com, where I go for all my crystal and gemstone needs.